In late May, 3 months after the U.S. imposed sanctions on Russian oil, gasoline made from Russian crude was delivered to this terminal in New Jersey. It was later distributed to gas stations across the East Coast. It came from this refinery in Italy owned by Russian oil giant LUK Oil. That's because of a U.S. sanctions loophole that allows banned Russian crude to be refined in a country outside of Russia and sent to the U.S. We tracked ships, pieced together months of commodity data, shipping documents, and satellite imagery to reveal how Russia's second-largest oil and gas company, Lukoil, is sending Russian oil refined in Italy to companies like Exxon in the United States without violating sanctions. Our investigation shows that Lukoil's ISAB refinery in Syracuse, Sicily, represents one of the most extreme examples of this loophole. The vast majority of the crude for this refinery comes from Russia. It's then refined in Sicily, after which it's considered Italian, thanks to a long-standing industry practice that allows the origin of oil to change based on where it's refined. The U.S. launched sanctions against Russia as punishment for invading Ukraine in late February, banning imports of Russian oil and oil products, as well as blacklisting Russian oligarchs and companies the U.S. says are close to President Putin. Unlike Russia's largest state-owned oil and gas company, Rosneft, Lukoil was not sanctioned. Lukoil still has a presence in the U.S. and distributes oil products to 11 states, according to the company's website. The only reason it can sell Russian oil into the U.S. is because it stops at the refinery in Sicily on its way here. Lukoil's refinery in Sicily is the second largest in Italy and the fifth largest in Europe. Before the war, it brought in and blended crude oil from at least 15 different countries, with an average of 30% coming from Russia. Now, the overwhelming majority of it comes from Russia because European banks stopped lending money to the ISAB refinery after Russia invaded Ukraine. As a result, the Lukoil refinery was no longer able to buy crude from other countries. Since April, as much as 93% of its feedstock is pure Russian crude. The rest is a Russian-Kazakh blend, or Kazakh, according to data from commodity tracking firm Vortexa. All of the crude came from Russian ports, with the most coming from Primorsk. We see a shipment loading there in this satellite image from late March. The vessel here is the SCF Baltica, a tanker belonging to Russia's largest state-owned shipping company, Sovcomflot, a company sanctioned by the U.S. Sovcomflot did not respond to a request for comment. We see the same ship again a few weeks later, delivering that oil to the refinery in Sicily. It's this crucial stop that eventually allows Lukoil to sell this oil as gasoline and other products to the U.S. A spokeswoman for the U.S. Department of the Treasury, which administers and enforces sanctions, declined to comment. But U.S. sanctions state an exception for any Russian-origin good that has been substantially transformed into a foreign-made product. In general, substantial transformation means that the oil has been changed through processing or manufacturing, such as refining. Refining is a process in which crude is heated and distilled. While this process technically transforms the crude into a different product, if the same raw ingredients used in Lukoil's Sicily refinery were brought to the U.S., it would be a violation of sanctions. The refinery exported almost 5 million barrels of oil products to the U.S. since March of this year. Roughly 2.5 million of those barrels were gasoline. According to the American Petroleum Institute, that's enough to fill about 7 million automobile gas tanks. We traced shipments delivered to at least 7 different buyers in at least 13 different locations. Some of this was gasoline. While we can see where it was delivered, shipping data doesn't always identify the buyer. Data shows fuel oil and gasoline were purchased by Exxon and oil trading companies such as Lukoil's own trading arm, Litasco. The most oil products sent from Lukoil Sicily to the U.S. since March went to Exxon's terminal in Baytown, Texas, just outside Houston. Nearby, a terminal owned by Magellan Midstream Partners, a company that transports and distributes oil products, received the largest amount of gasoline. A spokesperson for Magellan said although they received the shipment, they were not the buyer, and shipping data does not list one. Another gasoline shipment, over 300,000 barrels, arrived at this terminal in New Jersey. Shipping data indicates the receiver for that delivery was also Exxon. A spokeswoman from Exxon said ExxonMobil is complying with all sanctions, and that deliveries it received are certified products of Italian origin. Lukoil did not respond to multiple requests for comment. Though shipments like these from Lukoil's Sicily refinery may represent only a fraction of U.S. oil imports, they reveal how difficult it is to track and eliminate Russian oil in the U.S. supply chain. The Lukoil refinery in Sicily will be forced to stop importing Russian crude and may have to close when European sanctions banning it come into effect on December 5th. In the meantime, at a number of gas stations across the U.S., Americans are filling up their vehicles, paying for fuel that in part adds to Russia's profits.